Oh, another issue, the number 3 in the story of nothing, and it's really boring information. The Harveys there. I figured they didn't like single mothers in that town as well. I had that feeling in 2005 that not only was there racism, but there was a hatred of single mothers that was fostered by Channel 9 for one. I think Channel 10 or someone, they've targeted me as an irresponsible single mother. In actual fact, they should have been better off targeting a single mother who maybe got pregnant and had babies for a $5,000 fucking deposit when they're born, unlike me, who they were born before that period of time, or who actually had a husband that they could hand them to half the week or on weekends whilst they went off and partied, because mine had left the country, or who actually claimed maintenance, which I never did. So I had the support of my parents, but they never had their father. You think maybe they might have cut me some slack and gone after a real fucking single mother bludger, because I was going to go and get my teacher's dip ed at one point earlier on when Nick left the country, and my daughter went into a panic attack and wanted me there after school because you've got to be here after school, blah, 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 because Dad's not here, and what if you go disappear too, and went into some panic attack. So I devout and declared, fuck it, your kids are your priority. They haven't got a father here. You don't get maintenance. What assholes. So obviously, anyway, they burned the house down. I'm claiming it's an arson. They went out of their way after that to set me up as the arsonist. Les Van Donkelaar became involved. I assume that's because there's the Van Donkelaars at Pine Gap working there. Probably Frank Pesca was the CEO at council. I assume Stephen Smith or someone like that bought it hook, line and sinker. That I was some nuff retard that couldn't manage fire. Simple fact, when I was about 18 or 19, I think, I started eating fire. I actually taught myself how to eat fire, and I could, and light another one and extinguish it in my mouth and all that business, like fire eaters, And we used to go camping often. My dad was an environmental education teacher at the ACES for a couple of years. We would often go camping and antique bottle digging, out in the bush, all over the place. Learned fire management from quite an early age, fire risk assessment. I had the same common sense instilled into me as my brothers, who are both genetic, same makeup, and I was one of the smarter kids in the family. So you would think I would have common sense, as we all grew up in the same environment and conditioned by the same rules and teachings and by mum and dad, and I had further education from 3 older brothers as well, which is putting me ahead of them, probably more common sense you would really assume ultimately. Except that I like La La Land and I like fairies and I like the art, so, I am prone to daydream by choice. And if I haven't got common sense about a car, that's because I had no interest in that, and I wasn't a girl, and I never had to manage a car, and I had to teach myself. But anyway, I have plenty of common sense. They've got plenty of wrong judgment. And I'm not selfish like they are. Won't even let me move to Melbourne or interstate. That's very selfish. Even with the children. And in Glass Street from 91 on, we had an open fireplace. My grandmother, I grew up, she had like a Rayburn, I don't know what the brand was, wooden oven, 2 fireplaces always going in their house in the winter, certainly the Rayburn in the summer as well. Cooking, always baking, always cups of tea, little china cups. When I was out at Briagla in 2006-07, baked on a Rayburn. I'm quite adept. I bet I can run that fucking thing better than Les, the fucking landlord. He wouldn't know some tips I know about baking and cooking on a Rayburn, and that's how I heated the house. In fact, when I put a fucking log in that had a nail hanging out of it, I could smell the metal burning, and I went into a slight state of trauma from the house burning episode the year before. Anyway, mowed my lawns, complied with the fire prevention notice, had 4 stat decks, one from psychologist Simone Malcolm, her husband, school teacher, RACV, David Stevenson, who came out from Hayfield when my car broke down on the block that I mowed, and he drove onto it and fixed my car and realised I'd mowed it and I'd been taking stuff to the rubbish dump in Maffra, and that's why in clearing the block. It was by the due date. Also Jim Taylor, who witnessed it, who's a radio technician and engineer or whatever. So I had 4 stat decks. That wasn't good enough. They had to adjourn it and told me to get legal representation. They perjured in court. There was also the shit. Kevin Birch perjured in court. Magistrate Hill told him, "You've said enough, sit down." They later doctored the transcript that was recorded and edited it. And I know about editing and music editing, having worked with musicians. And I know it can be done, and I know that it was edited out, censored. And they set me up to look like an idiot. That hadn't happened. They wanted me to get representation. They wanted to fuck me over. Basically, they wanted me to plead that in some kind of insanity grounds. So they could get Larson the house in Glass Street off me and give it to Nick Wilson over the road, who was full of bullshit about me and gossip and lies anyway. Also another defamer. Always yelling at my children, apparently. Funny that, considering I was always reading books to them and pretending to be Hagrid or whatever. And they'd go past and assume it was yelling at them. So, oh no, it's a life of bullshit. I was a lesbian from year 7 on, according to all the Scion sluts. So, anyhow, and according to all the high school kids, I was a Scion slut. So, where do you go? I didn't even know what sex was. Nor did my own children at that age, year 7. They were like very sheltered. I never exposed them to anything lewd on movies or TV. They watched very little TV. They only had periods of time when they watched it. When friends turned up, usually I'd let them watch it so I could have time with my mates. So anyway, you can be celibate for 5 years and have a one night stand and you're promiscuous. You know that? 2005, all of 2005 to... Once I left Melbourne, 2005 to... Once I left the house in East Brunswick to 2005 to 2007, I finally had a one night stand and I was promiscuous. Finally had another 2 nights of sex. No, 2 nights of sex with one man and 1 night of sex with another man in 2010, still promiscuous. Still a lesbian after 2 children and separation and death of their father. No one gave a fuck. Didn't give a flying fuck. I wasn't even allowed to go overseas to see his fucking funeral or let the kids get closure. They prevented me from getting them a passport because I didn't have his signature. I then provided his death certificate, which they rejected because it wasn't an original copy. They didn't believe it was real. It was an original copy. It had certified written on it, stamped on it. It was sent from the town hall. It was an original copy. And camping, yeah, well, you know, I can actually boil a billy on a fire about this big if I prop it up with some rocks and stuff, and you pretty much get hardly any flames and a lot of smoke, or hardly anything, no smoke even. And that's how I would do it when I travelled. I was not one for like putting fucking kero on a fire and putting a big fucking fire in place. I would just do the necessary fire it took to make food. I think I never let it out and out of on a fire ban day. Obviously, the winter there are no fire bans. I think there were occasions when we had a proper little fire. When I was out at Bryaglong, there was a drum that the locals, like Craig McMillan, a neighbour, came and lit on fire one time I used to have jam sessions with music there on a Saturday. Tree Bogsnoff, he was very adept and handles herself well in the bush. She used to carry an Uzi around in Africa when she worked on a coffee plantation at night to fend off guerrillas. Very capable woman. Very experienced and well able to handle a fire and know how to be responsible. Helped me get stuff ready to burn off. We had a little fireplace going in this thing that Craig had set up there, and she burned it off in there for me. I didn't actually do any of that. Les's brother turned up with a jetpack. I think he might have done his jetpack flew some flames on the ground here and there during the Christmas of 2005-06. I don't know, whatever the case, the boys hung out, all three of them, Jasper and Rowan and Sam, my son, there together. There was no point when Sam was guest of Jasper that he went wandering off on his own, lighting fires around the place without them being there. They were all participating in anything they got up to, which meant building little shacks out of bent wattle saplings and stuff like that. My son joined the fire brigade in 2006 too because of the event, I think, in Calabarin influenced him when our house burned down. And in 2007 there were massive bushfires that started heading over towards Bryaglong. Smoke got too much. I got fucking too freaked out because I was like, fire. After that other thing, I don't know. I found it quite traumatic. No one gave a fuck it happened. No one gave a fucking shit. They're like, oh, you didn't have insurance. Dad gave me yelled at me when I got back from Perth. You didn't have insurance. You were irresponsible. And it never came through. It was only a month down the track after purchase. I didn't like the fucking thing. No one gives a fuck. No one gave a fuck when anything went wrong. Not in the family. I got so frustrated by them in the end. Every time I left that house in 2006, 2007 when visiting parents, I bawled my eyes out like a pathetic little baby all the way back to Bryaglong. They didn't care about their dead father. His blood. They didn't care about the fire. They didn't care about fuck all. All they cared about was having control and hooks on those fucking children, which they've got now. They finally took them off me and turned them against me. And they put down their mother and their father through all these times of trauma when their mother got locked up. My son trying to go into a rage because he wants to defend his mother. They hurt that boy to no end, and he ended up giving up his education because he was so fucking traumatised from living with my parents. They'd never admit it, but I know what they were like when I grew up, when they got a fucking bee in their body. Once you became an adult, they didn't want to let you go free. Love is giving the nest to raise your children and then letting them the wings to fly away. They didn't let the fly away bit happen, so they've only half loved me. They half love my children. So, the poor kids. So Sam's, all they did was put down his dead father all the time, Dad and the brothers, and put down me. I fucked up his education. I did. Well, funny, he went travelling for a year with me in a van. He did 2 years of Steiner School. And these are during his secondary. Year 7, 8, Steiner School. Year 6, 7, Steiner School. Year 8, travelling in a van. Year 9, he goes to Mafra and he managed to stay in his same year. Year 11, he does Year 12, biology and outdoor ed. And passed fine and then went to TAFE. where he was going to do a pathway program into university, cutting himself a year of having to pay off, because that would be a credit for 1 year at university, which means we only, instead of paying for 3 years, we have to pay for 2. And it's a guaranteed pathway in instead of a selection process. Up at Albury, Wodonga, or wherever, he wanted to be a marine biologist. And that's what he chose to do. I gave him the option. I said, this is one angle you can do, mate. What do you reckon? I was paranoid it was going to get all stressful during his HSC like I did in mine, VCE. But anyway, when my brother died. But anyway, that something might go amiss. But anyway, also it's all another year of in-the-field training from experts, which is seems like a fucking rational way to go if you ask me. Get your diploma, a year. Well, to the family, this wasn't good enough. I fucked up his education. He should have sat his VCE and done his year 12, and that's the only way to go. He was sure of what he wanted to be. They turned him against what I'd done. They went on and on about it so much that in the end he dropped out and became an alcoholic for a while at a mate's place in Mafra. When his dad was dead, his mother was suffering, thrown in a mental institute, which totally destroyed my children. It traumatised my children beyond belief. They came home from school and their mother was gone. Mental health didn't have a safety net. They didn't even inform the family. Where's mum? Yogi Agrawal put me in there, Dr. Yogi Agrawal. He said to me, if you don't take medication for depression, we're going to admit you. You're too promiscuous. There was a witness. I wrote to the state government and told them what had happened. They made him write a letter of apology. I imagine he didn't like that and probably went on a vendetta after that to destroy me. John Bergen wrote 10 years, Dr. John Bergen, of notes, fabricated notes, semi-fabricated, certainly embellished, and half of them just shit that my dad said because he wanted power of attorney and state trustees, and this is what they advised. To bullshit, I imagine. He only consulted me for half an hour in the start of 2005 before we went on our travels. Yet he had 10 years of notes on me. None of it ethical, all illegal. What was I thinking? I've gone spotless. You can make a Hollywood film out of this last decade, I swear to God. Of injustice, like Evil Angels, what they do in Australia to innocent people and good families and beautiful children with good morals. And my son learned to tell the truth from an early age. Anyway, he dropped out. He was all he putting down his mother. My son adored me. My daughter adored me. Do you know what that did to them psychologically? Confidence. It ruined his self-esteem and confidence. And then everyone else, all these other little peers that are jealous of them, think they had a princess and prince upbringing. They've got no idea what they went through. No idea. My son's not an Asperger, by the way. He was also always socially adept. When he was at Mafra High, for instance, at the prom night at the end of the year, when they were in the final in year 11 or whatever, or did he go to a year 12 one because he did the year 11, the year 12 biology and stuff, so he got invited to that. I don't know what it was. With his little girlfriend Sweeney. Hey, she got the wrong idea too, but anyway, they don't take into account grief of the dead auntie at the time. But anyway, it's all me, Joe's the problem, Joe's the problem. You know what, they actually coped fine with their mother until everyone started hassling me out and hassling them out and putting them down. Killed their self-esteem. So anyway, little Prince of Bel-Air. No. Funny, all those spoiled little only children with a mummy and a daddy that give them everything and they want, and they're the golden children. Turn around and they're like jealous of my kids. Or they're putting down my kids. You know, everyone loved Sam, that's probably why. They spoke highly of him, but... Oh yeah, at the prom, best couple. They got the best couple at the prom. I was so pleased. Does that sound like an Asperger? Does that sound socially inept in any way? No, Sam's fine socially.